With the first part of this new series finished, go and check it out in the iCard. The logical next step from Africa is obviously Oceania. If you're unfamiliar with this series, we are taking the best country from each continent and putting them against each other in a massive knockout tournament. This is the Oceania episode. Subscribe and like the video if you're going to enjoy it, and let's do this. But before we start, if you haven't seen Imperialism before, I'll explain the rules. First, we spin the wheel with each nation on it. Then we spin an arrow and the direction it points determine who it plays. So if the wheel picks Algeria and then the arrow spins to the left, then Algeria would play Morocco. Simple enough. Now let's actually do this. First up in this video was Fiji, and they would travel west to play Vanuatu. Fiji were the winners as they beat Vanuatu by 2 thanks to headers from Love Samira, great name, and Jennings. Next up were the Oceanic Titans, Australia, and they would go north and play another big country in the shape of Papua New Guinea. As Australia normally do in this continent, they went ahead before extending their lead to 2-0, thanks to whatever the this is. But Papua New Guinea scored a goal through Brown from another mistake to close down the gap. Australia went first though, as a simple through ball was scored by Mabil, and then Kuo went around the keeper to finish the game off and make it 4-1. Australia now controlled the 2 biggest bits of land in Oceania, and it's only the second game. New Caledonia played next, and they went east to play Fiji. There was 1 goal in it as Fiji won 1-0 with their only shot on target in the game. Now it was Micronesia who played, and they would go southeast to play Tuvalu. Now this was a thriller. In the second minute, Pitoa put Tuvalu ahead in the tie with a nice volley before making it 2-0 5 minutes later. Then just after half time, Peso for Micronesia tucked away a nice penalty before Peninsula, what a name as well, crossed it in for Pitoa, who nodded it in for his hat-trick. Then Tuvalu once again crossed it in for Pitoa, who got his 4th of the game thanks to some dodgy goalkeeping. Surely the game's done. Wrong. Micronesia would reply 10 minutes later with Peso again with a nice header. And then with 6 minutes to go, Barnabas scored a banging free kick to jangle the nerves of Tuvalu fans. But it wasn't meant to be, as Tuvalu got over the line to claim 600 more islands into their nation. Next was the Cook Islands, who would travel west to play Tonga. Tonga went ahead in the 34th minute with a beautiful free kick before Simioma would tap in an equaliser thanks to some Maguire-esque defending. And with 4 minutes to go, Bonsumaro would pass in the winner for the Cook Islands as they would take over the 170 islands of Tonga. Australia played again, this time against their biggest rivals, New Zealand. In the 21st minute, Aaron Moy whipped in a beautiful ball which was headed in by Degenek. 14 minutes later, and Kuo headed a lofted ball down to Mabo, who slotted it home to make it 2-0. And finally, Kuo used his pace on a counter-attack to outrun the defenders and then go around the keeper to make it 3-0 before half-time. That was how the game would end, as New Zealand were wiped out in embarrassing fashion. But now we may have a bigger rivalry somehow, as Samoa played against American Samoa. This was a cagey affair, as a missed penalty for Jesse of Samoa in the 85th minute took the game to extra time and then penalties. Luckily for him though, his teammates would bail him out and win the shootout by 5-4. Next was Tuvalu again, and they would go west to play the Solomon Islands, who kind of had this really good guy called Rafael Leai. You've probably heard of him. Yeah, this one was a bloodbath. The Solomon Islands won 9-1 and Leai got 7. And the Solomon Islands would play again as they went against a much harder opponent in Fiji. Fiji went ahead from a set piece after 20 minutes, and the scores would stay that way until David scored a free kick for the Solomon Islands to tie the game up. It stayed that way in full time, so extra time was needed. And in the 107th minute, who else to step up to the Fijian plate than Roy Krishna, who slotted it home to make it 2-1. He would then score a penalty 4 minutes later to bury the game and send Rafael Leai packing back to Bosnia. Australia played again, and their next victims were Tahiti. They couldn't completely copy the Solomon Islands, but it was still 6-1 as they were actually only 2-1 up at half time. Off the back of their win over their American rivals, Samoa played again, and they went against Australia. Once again, can anyone beat these guys? It was 4-0 to Australia as Leckie, Suter, Kuo and McLaren all scored. But they actually had 34 shots, so terrible conversion rate, guys. We had 2 games left now, and the Cook Islands were next up in the Australia schedule. They lost by 11-0 as Rogic managed to score a hat-trick. So the final for Oceania is set, and it's Fiji against Australia. Who's going to win? Who knows, because these are 2 good teams. In the 64th minute, big game player Aaron Moy stepped up and scored a banging free kick to put Australia ahead. And that's how the game would end. 1-0 to Australia over Fiji as they took over the last bit of Oceania and took over the continent. Who could have seen that coming? But shorter episode this time. Subscribe if you enjoyed, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.